everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make a chicken parm with some pasta, bake up a sourdough loaf, and yeah. So let's start by getting our sourdough out. We're going to get ready to score it, and we'll pop this in the oven. So I'm going to do my big expansion score. And then do just another little slice along. And although I was the other day, I thought about doing like a jack-o'-lantern and having it pop up just a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Here we go. No guarantees that this is going to turn out cute at all. But if it does, I'm a genius, guys. Let's just say, as I was driving my daughter to soccer practice, she goes, "Why can't we have one of those like 10-foot skeletons?" And I was like, "Oh, they're, a bit cumbersome a lot." I personally really want one. But after I saw them, they're like $300, and apparently they take like 3 hours to put together. So I was like, too much. But she was like, "We really need them. Everybody has them." And I was like, "No, they don't." And then we happened to drive by like 4 of them on the way to soccer practice. And I was like, "Well, maybe they do." And then she saw some lights and Halloween lights. And she was like, "We need to put up Halloween lights too." And I was like, "Okay, hold your horses. Bit too much Halloween, but I'm totally for it." Okay, let's get this baking for 20 minutes at 500 with our lid on. Then we'll take our lid off, reduce the temperature down to 450, and bake for another 20 minutes, and dinner should be ready by then, hopefully.
You say no to Halloween lights as purple lights.
Okay, their Halloween lights were pretty epic. They had like done the whole little outline of the house in like this bright purple. I feel like they should have thrown in some green and the orange, but that's me. Not everybody's like me. One day I'm going to convince my husband to do it. And the way I do that is I just show up with it and I say, "I got this great idea." Hence all of my Halloween decorations, and it's chaos here. It's like every year at Halloween or at Christmas time, I go to like Home Depot or Lowe's, and without my husband. I make sure it's without my husband so I can come home with a new lawn decoration because it's very needed. Okay. So we're going to start off with about 2 cups of flour here. We're going to make our seasoned dredge for our chicken because we're going to do kind of a Parmesan panko crusted chicken to go for our chicken parm. I'm going to do my chicken parm in kind of a creamier sauce for it. So a little twist on it. And our breading, we're going to put Parmesan in it as well as panko to get extra crunch. We're going to stick with some basic kind of Italian seasonings for our dredge. So I have some dried oregano.
You have a question? How were the fluffernutters?
Oh my goodness, they were so good. I had to put them away, but I think we're down to 1 batch, and I made 2 whole batches. And my second batch turned out better because I took the care to make sure to fold up the edges a little bit more. But they were so good. And Evie came home and she was like, "These are so good." And then Torin, who's not a big fan of peanut butter cookies, and I was just like, "Just try them. He ate 2 of them. So it was a win. They were really, really good. The mixture of the brown sugar and the peanut butter and that salt, just perfect. Okay, we put in about 1.5 tablespoons of dried oregano. We're going to put in about 1 tablespoon of dried basil because we really want these Italian spices to kind of pop through. We're going to put in about 1 teaspoon of pepper. And then 1 tablespoon of onion powder, which I think is going to get me through this. Yeah, we're just going to put it all in.
You have a question? What's your family's favorite meal?
My family's favorite meal is ravioli, which I was going to make this weekend. And then all of a sudden my 2 older children bailed on me. So I was like, I can't make it because then there would be a mutiny in here. But they love it when I make my homemade ravioli. We're going to put in about 1.5 tablespoons of garlic salt. So here is our really seasoned up dredge for it. I'm going to grab a fork to give it a little stir. Oh, and let me pop. I'm going to turn my water up high. And before I stir this, let's pop our noodles in for this. I'm just going to be using like a ziti. So just a simple, like a penny noodle for this, for our chicken parm. Although you can honestly use really any base noodle for it. There we go. So this is like one of those pasta bags that you get from like Costco, and they come in like a 6-pack. I love them. So we're going to add this in here. And then we give it a good stir. Because I'm not going to be using this pasta water, I'm not going to salt it. When I do use the pasta water in my salt or my sauce, I'm going to salt it. But since we're making just a creamy marinara, we're just going to keep it like this. Okay. Let's get our spices mixed in to our flour here. And this is going to be for our dredge for our chicken parm. So chicken parm is like breaded chicken that you serve over like marinara with melted Parmesan cheese. So we're kind of doing on the basis of it. But I kind of do mine a little bit deconstructed. In that I keep my chicken separate, but I will melt Parmesan on top of my tomato, like my pasta. So you get it both, but for those who like it, dry, it also keeps the chicken crispier longer. Okay, so we've got this mixed up. And then let's add in, or let's whip up our eggs here. So I've just got 4 eggs. And you might be able to get by with 3, but I like to err on the side of having too much mixture of both rather than not enough. Here we go. And then we'll just use the same thing, and we're just going to pop our yolks first, and then we're going to mix this up. And just you want to make sure you whisk it until you have no big long stringy egg whites. Because you don't want those to pull up into your breading or when you're doing that.
Yeah, question. What happened to the egg delivery truck?
It got put away. I always had to take away my husband's toys. Can't let him have any fun. No, Teddy saw it when he got home from school, and he had to play with it. I had gotten out, like, I like to rotate my kids' toys so they don't get as bored with them. And so I'll put them away. And I had just put out these wooden like ball set that he had. And so they've been playing with it, and that was fun. So he hadn't seen it in a while. And then he was very excited, and they all had to play with it. And of course, there's always fights ensued over who gets to hold what ball, even though they're all the same. Okay, let's get our chicken filleted in half here. And this is so that when we fry it up, it will be thinner and it will cook through more evenly. When you're trying to cut against the grain as much as possible. That's going to give you a more shaggy look like this, but it's going to make it more tender. So you see how we've kind of got a shag to it? That's going to break up those kind of fibers in your chicken and leave it much more tender. Here we go. And let me cut off a little bit of this fat as well. And these are boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I'd been using some thighs recently, but I've got my breasts out for tonight for this because I feel like it makes the best kind of chicken cutlets. Okay. So we're done with our knife here. Let's go and do our seasoned dredge first, and then we'll add in Parmesan and panko breadcrumbs to this after we've got our first kind of coating on. And so you're just going to dip it in, coat it all the way around. And the reason why I make sure I have it nice and seasoned is to ensure that you get all this flavor on your chicken from the very beginning. Some people will just do it in regular flour, but if you season it up now, you're going to have extra flavor. And that's the key, because you don't want to do the work and have it be bland. So we're just going to coat it up. And then the trick is just use one hand to do all of this. That way you have a free, clean hand to, open up some of the other stuff and manipulate things. Here we go. And coat these up. Also, I find, this was just 4 big chicken breasts. And by filleting them in half, it really allows your protein to go farther. And you still get a really great serving of chicken. I find that the chicken breasts, most of the time when you get them, they're so huge. They easily can feed 2 people. Okay, let me get a quick stir over here. This is, again, why you keep one hand clean. We're going to stir. You just want to make sure you stir so you don't have any of those noodles stick to the bottom of your pan. Okay, now, using our clean hand, we're going to add in our panko breadcrumbs. We're going to add in about 3/4 of a cup. And then we're going to add in some Parmesan cheese. Got to get creative here, guys. There we go. I think that should be enough. That looks like about a 1/2 cup of it. I have extra in case I need it, but I think this should be good. And then I'm just going to toss our cheese and our panko breadcrumbs into here. And then we're going to be ready to do our final little kind of dredging up here. So we've got our good seasoned mixture for it. So we're going to get through and we're going to go into our egg. And you see how it really sticks on to the chicken because of that flour? That's the key to making sure you get this lovely, nice, breaded, crunchy chicken. If you just try to go straight with egg to, your final crunch layer, it's not going to stick. That egg is going to slide right off your chicken. So into it, and that essentially is that egg mixture just binds with that flour and creates like an edible glue that holds all of this stuff on. Here we go. And I will say, the fun thing about breading and stuff like that, it's a basic skill that you can change up the spices, change up the protein, and use it for a lot of different meals. And that's what I think my kids really like it because, this is like a grown-up version of like chicken nuggets or whatnot, but they really enjoy it, especially like the different flavors that you can do with it. Here we go.
Can you go over the spices and the flour one more time?
Yes. So I started off with 2 cups of flour, and then we added in about 1.5 tablespoons of dried oregano, 1 tablespoon of dried basil, about 1 tablespoon of onion powder, 1.5 tablespoons of garlic salt, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. And then after we did all of our dredging in it in our first layer, and then we added in some seasoned panko breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. So we have lots of just kind of nice Italian flavors that will just go well with this chicken parm.
You have a question? Would this work well for chicken burgers?
You could make a patty and fry it up with it. So you could definitely do it with it. But I would have to say, I feel like chicken breasts are going to give you a nicer end texture. But you could definitely bread a chicken burger and to make it, like to make a fried chicken patty, and it would work for it. But I still think chicken is going to give you that better texture. Because with fried chicken or like ground chicken, there's a bit of moisture in it. So that when you're frying it up, it could lead to a soggier crumb. Here we go. But you don't have to just use chicken. This also works great for fish, pork tenderloin, chuck steak. It's a great simple breading method that you can change up the flavors with whatever your protein you're pairing it with. Here we go. So we'll get down to our last one after this. And you see how we have a good amount left over, but on the opposite is you don't want to be so low that it struggles for you to kind of coat everything up. Here we go. So we've got our thing. And again, this is why I leave one hand clean to do this so that I can manipulate and work with this. Okay. Let's get this in here. I get my hands scrubbed up real quick. And there we go. And then let me grab a paper towel to just get a little bit of this extra flour off right now. Here we go. So while we're waiting, I'm going to get my oil starting to heat up so that we can start frying off this chicken, because I'm going to have to fry it off in batches. Now, when I'm frying chicken, I don't completely submerge my chicken. What I do is I'll fry it half on both sides. That way I can use a lot less oil. So all I am is putting enough oil to kind of cover the bottom of my pan so that that whole bottom half of the chicken will sit in it. Also knowing, like just like with water displacement theory, that when I put each piece of chicken in, it's going to raise that oil level up a little bit. Do a smidge more. We're not going to drop our chicken in until it is nice and hot. So I have it heating up on an 8, which is a high, but I'm going to turn it down to a 5 to fry it on. But I want my oil nice and hot for when it's ready to throw in there. It gets that initial thing, because every time you drop that cold chicken in, it's going to lower it down some.
You have a question? How do you know how much flour and panko to use when you're doing the breading?
So kind of my rule of thumb, if I'm using 4 chicken breasts, which I can fillet into 8 pieces, it's about 1 egg and a half a cup of flour per chicken breast, for flour. And then the panko, it's about 1/4 of a cup per chicken breast. So that's kind of the math that I use. So depending on if I have less or more, then I'll reduce or increase. And that's just through the amount of time. That's how much I've realized of what I've needed to do it. Okay, while we're waiting for our noodles to cook up, we're going to prep up our green onions here that we're going to be adding into our sauce. So these are like the biggest green onions here. They're more like spring onions instead of green onions. And so I'm going to actually chop up my whiter parts, my white and pale green parts. And that way we can give them a nice saute first for this. And then we'll save a little bit of my darker green ones to add in just towards the end, because the paler to the white part is going to have more of an astringent onion flavor, while the dark green parts are going to have more of that mellow onion flavor. So I'm going to kind of give these a quick little dice up, because we are going to saute these up with some garlic just to add a little bit of an onion and garlic flavor to our marinara, because and then we're going to use some fresh basil. Here we go. So I'm almost mincing it up just like how my garlic would be, because it's nice to have just these little tender onion bits. And then we'll throw those last ones in at the very end to give a bit more of a fresh onion flavor. Here we go. Okay, let's check on our noodles here. We've got a green onion stuck onto me. So I'm going to cook these to right at around al dente. Let me grab a fork because it doesn't want to come out to me. Just about. So we'll get these strained, and that way we can start working on our sauce here in just a second. So let me grab my little colander here. Actually, I can just use this one because I'm using my small pot today. Now with these, you don't have to, I'm going to dump them out, strain them, and then we'll just let them rest. We don't need to toss them with oil or anything like that, because we're going to be putting them back into our sauce.
Your number one question, do you have a cookbook?
I do not have a cookbook. I get asked that a lot, and that's on my future things to tackle this year. But I do post all of our streams to the link on our page so everybody can recreate our recipes from watching that. And for my members, I post about 3 recipe cards a week for them based on the recipes we cook during that week, the 3 most popular ones. Okay, let's check our oil. We're just going to put a nice little drop in. Apparently, I didn't put a drop in. You just want a little drop to test and see if it sizzles right away. So it didn't quite sizzle right away, which means it needs just a smidge more time, and then we're going to turn it down. But while we're waiting, I'll get my tongs and to get ready to pop these in. And let's not forget, here. And it looks like it's sizzling now. It doesn't take long, so I'm going to turn my heat down to a 5. And that's what we're going to fry it on. So you heat it up to at it high, and then you turn it down when you're about to drop your chicken in, because you want it to be a little bit hotter than your cooking temperature, because once we put this chicken in, the chicken is cold. It's going to lower your temperature of your oil just a little bit. And you want to make sure that it stays hot to give you a nice crispy edge, but without getting cold, because that if you fry in cold oil or it's cooler, you're not going to get that nice crisp on it. So really important to make sure it's hot to start with. Let me grab my olive oil right here. Let's start sauteing up some of our stuff. I'm going to rotate this. We're going to add, since this is a big pan, I'm going to add in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. But let's go check on our sourdough first. So I'm not going to turn that on yet until we come back. But it is time for us to take the lid off of our sourdough and check out its progress. Okay. This is where you always know when it's going to be a good loaf or not. Because if you get your pop. Okay, so we had it cooking at 500 for 20 minutes. And looks like we got a semi-pop. I guess my face thing didn't go as well, but it'll still pop a little bit. Okay, we're going to pop this in here at 450. Oven
I have
bake.
a question. For those that aren't getting notifications, any update on when you're going to start a weekly schedule?
I am trying to get that figured out. I have to first become the master of schedules. Once I know, we're supposed to be getting my daughter's soccer schedule, practice schedule, which will come up, but this next couple weeks we have districts, regionals, and then hopefully state for soccer. And so those are going to be, I don't know what those game schedules are, but once we have an actual good routine schedule, I know, then we can start doing it by, at least week by week of, for at least a couple times, I always say, my kids keep me flexible. Today I was thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe soccer will get canceled because we had storms, and then the sun just came out for like the perfect 2 hours for Evie's soccer practice, which I'm glad she got it in. But if it ever is to be canceled, if it could be canceled on a Monday, that's great, because Monday is when I have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to her soccer practice location. So I'm always just like, oh, please let the rain cancel it, because if the rain cancels it, it's okay. But we're going to be working on it. But I added in my green onions in here with about a tablespoon of olive oil. So we're going to let these saute up just a little bit. And once we get kind of a nice browning on it, then we're going to add in our garlic. These green onions that I'm chopping up right now, we're going to throw in towards the end. They're the darker green. You don't want to put these in now, because they'll wilt and they'll lose their flavor. So to really get that nice, bright, happy onion flavor, we're going to add it in towards the end. So I have that. I'm going to slide this out of the way so you guys have a good view. And then I have some fresh basil that we're going to be using as well. Let me turn this down to about a 4 now. And get that going. So since I minced up my green onions pretty small, you just have to keep a pretty close eye on them because the smaller your little veggie pieces are, the quicker they can go from being perfectly crispy to overcooked. That's why I always say when you add your garlic in to really pay attention because that garlic can get overcooked pretty fast as well.
Question: how long do you cook the chicken on each side?
I cook the chicken on each side. I want to say give or take like 4 or so minutes. What I'm actually looking more for is a visual cue. When I start to see a nice, really like a slightly darker brown golden edges around it, that's when I'm going to know it's ready because I'm cooking these a pretty constant temperature of around a medium. Then it should cook up evenly around that same time. So as long as you've heated your oil up correctly and whatnot, your visual cues are going to let you know when it is. And the trick with cooking or frying is don't do super high oil heat. Do low and slow. If you're new to it and you're like worried about having it cooked all the way through, turn it down even lower. But just make sure your oil is hot to start with, because it is when your oil is too hot, what will happen is you will crisp up your outside and it will look done, but your middle will not be done. So always cook over a medium or a medium low heat. Okay, so I'm going to mince up. I've got some fresh basil. This is about a 1/3 cup of fresh basil, which we'll add in here just to give it a really nice fresh flavor to it. And I think my chicken is getting pretty close to being able to flip. So I'm actually going to grab out my fish spatula here. And let me grab another set of tongs. And what makes it easier is just put your spatula under and then you flip it. And there we go. Here is our beautiful kind of light golden brown fry on it. The darker bits are the Parmesan cheese. So you always have to just watch those because they'll cook up a little bit faster than this. But again, keep it low and slow. I'm going to rotate. I did not add any paprika into my my dredge today. When you add paprika, you will have a darker, orangier color to it, like a reddish brown color to it, which is delicious, but I didn't want to add the paprika for today's flavors. Okay, let's get our garlic in here. We're going to add in about a good 1.5 teaspoons of garlic. And that's going to sizzle pretty good. So just keep an eye on it. We'll let it kind of toast up. Beautiful. And you want to let it saute for a few minutes, or like a minute, I should say, not a few minutes, like 30 seconds to a minute, to really crisp it up and bring out those flavors before we add in our sauce. And it smells so good. Okay, for this, I'm just going to start with my favorite marinara. You could definitely make your own, but you know, I always say, who has the time for this? I've got part of a jar to start with. We're going to add in, this is just Rayo's good old marinara. Turning my temperature down to low because I don't want it too high.
You have a question? Do you always know what you're going to cook the next day?
No, I had no idea what I was making for dinner. I thought about it while I was at soccer practice, and I was like, and I went through, I was thinking about doing butter chicken. I was thinking about doing orange chicken because I was thinking about rice, and then I was like, chicken parm. So, no, it's how I feel for the day is what I kind of make, or what my kids, if they suggest something and I have the ingredients, then I'll do it. And add in another jar of my marinara. Here we go. And then I'm going to add in half of my basil now to kind of stew in there with it. And now I'm going to get a cutting or a baking sheet and some paper towels so that I can rest my chicken on there. Okay.
You have quite a few requests for butter chicken.
Okay. That's what I said. I was gonna do butter chicken, and then I realized I'm like, I'm not sure I have some of the ingredients that I needed. Let's see. Doing a nice checking on them. I want them a little bit long. So this is a bit too blonde. You want a darker golden color to it. So we'll let them sit for just a little bit longer on there. Also, I will say, if you learn your stove, I have found that my stove has hot spots. So it's always hotter right here. So I make sure that when I'm frying, I kind of rotate my pan so that the same piece of chicken is not frying in the same spot. Okay. We've got our things. I'm going to put in a little bit of our cream now, because I said I was going to do kind of a creamier, almost like a vodka sauce for our chicken parm, because we had spaghetti and meatballs, I feel like, not that long ago. So I want to change it up just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot of cream to get that creaminess to your pasta. Like a third a cup to a half a cup will give you a really rich kind of texture and flavor to it. So don't put a whole bunch in. You don't need a whole bunch. A little goes a long way. But it's going to give you just a richer, delicious sauce. There we go. And I think it pairs really well with adding the fresh basil and the green onions. Okay, let's check these chicken out now. Much better. So we got this nice golden thing. Now when we put it on our paper towel, you want to put that grease side down so that you end with a nice crispy chicken. If you put the grease side up, that grease will sit there and it will make your breading soggy instead of crispy.
You have a request to go over the seasonings for the chicken?
Yes. So for the chicken, we started out with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we added in a tablespoon and a half of dried oregano, a tablespoon of basil, a tablespoon of onion powder, and a tablespoon and a half of garlic salt, and a teaspoon of black pepper. That was our initial dredge. You mix all that up, and then you coat the chicken in it, the first one. Then after you've got all of your chicken dredged once, then you're going to add in about 3/4 a cup of panko breadcrumbs and a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. And that's going to give you your lovely bread. And then you'll put it through the egg wash and into that to create your chicken. Let me get a spoon. I want to test this out. We'll let it simmer here for just a second. Beautiful. So I have it on low and we're going to let it simmer. And while that's simmering, and I don't think I'm going to have another jar of marinara, but I don't think I'm going to need it. We're going to put our noodles here in just a second and let it soak, and then we're going to cover it with some cheese, but I want that to warm up. But while we're waiting, I'm going to slice up some strawberries for dinner tonight. Let me turn this up a smidge. Perfect. You give these a quick rinse. I was deciding, I was like, ooh, should I do a salad too? And I was like, oh, my kids are going to fill up on pasta and noodles. So I know they'll eat the strawberries, but I didn't think they would eat the salad. Evie would eat the salad. Salads are one of her favorite foods. She actually requests me to put a salad in her lunch half the time. And I'm just like, you are one crazy kid. I mean, I love salads. I think the reason that she loves salads is when she was little, she used to always steal, we'd go to the pool and she would steal my salad, like my, off of my things. And I also feel like she is a great lover of strong flavors because she was on a feeding tube for 6 months. And so everything was in the feeding tube. And so now she loves like wasabi and lemons and limes, just extreme flavors.
Are you going to be posting this recipe?
We will upload our video to the link on our page, so you can always watch and recreate along with us for our recipes. That's kind of the best way to watch and see them. But for our members, each week we do post 3 of our recipe cards that we have. out there. And so I think this last week we just posted what were our recipes we had. Oh, our brown sugar Pop-Tart. I had my pumpkin risotto and pumpkin scones. So we had a full-on pumpkin kind of fest. Okay, let me grab a little bit more. Let's give this a stir. I have a few more. I'm going to rotate this again just a little bit. I'm going to start putting my noodles in here to kind of coat up for this. So don't worry if your noodles are stuck together like you made a sandcastle. This is going to, as soon as it touches the sauce, they're going to break apart. So that's why I always say, don't coat them with oil because that's going to prevent the sauce from really seeping into your noodles and giving them a great flavor. So we'll coat them up here. Just really nice and lovely. And just once they start hitting the sauce, they'll break apart. There we go. And that's what I always feel like, you know, growing up in the 90s, you would make spaghetti and you'd serve them separately. You have your sauce in one thing and you'd have your noodles, and you always put butter or olive oil on your noodles to prevent them from sticking together. Well, I find I don't ever serve my pasta separate. I mix it into the sauce so that even the next day, your pasta will be so delicious because it will have time. It has time to sink in and to really flavor your noodles. And as long, you know, and your sauce shouldn't be so runny that it's going to make it soggy. That's why you want to cook it to a perfect like al dente or just a smidge before if you have a lighter, thinner sauce. Okay, there we go. So I've got my my sauce here. Let me check my chicken. We'll see how it looks.
Yeah, but how much pasta did you use?
I used one bag, not quite. This is a very blonde fry, so we want to let it cook a little bit longer. I used one bag. I think it was a pound of pasta for this. And this is going to feed, you know, our big family here. So this should feed about 8 people. Let's see. Aha, this is the best part about it. So chicken parm, as you know, when you typically see it, they put the chicken down and then you coat everything with cheese. I like to serve my chicken and my noodles separate, especially because, you know, you get some picky kids who have some opinions about what should be. Oh, before we do that, I almost forgot to mix in my extra spices. So I've got my green onions and the rest of my basil here. And we're going to mix it in. And again, I'm adding the green onions and the basil because we have this creamier marinara sauce. And I think it just adds a lot more flavor to it because it kind of takes away from it just being a marinara sauce. Here we go. And this kind of coat it around. Beautiful. And now I'm just going to flatten it all out. And again, I have my temperature on very low. You don't need it too high. And now we're going to sprinkle over our cheese. Here we go. So I've got mozzarella, and you want to use a good, like, high-quality mozzarella for the best melting point. I love Tillamook, but really anyone that, like, is a whole milk mozzarella versus a part skim works a little bit better. And then, of course, we are going to top this with our Parmesan cheese as well. And then we're going to go and pop this in the oven and just right underneath our bread that's baking to get this cheese to melt up. And it doesn't need long to melt up and get bubbly. It should be able to come out in just a few minutes. Let's see. I'm going to check. Okay, I'm going to rotate this, and then let's go pop this in the oven. Okay. And perfect, because this should be done shortly after our bread is, because if things, oh, looks like it got a huge peak on there anyways. Look at me. Let me see. I'm going to have to slide this, aren't I? Here we go. There we go. Okay, let's get our chicken flipped here. We'll finish up cutting up the second batch of my strawberries. Our bread, as you can see, is going to be done very soon. Beautiful. Here's my much more golden brown color that I was looking for. And also know when you flip it, as that grease starts to settle, it's going to turn into a darker brown. So this is kind of what they all looked like first, but if you come and look at our finished product right here, it is more golden brown. So as it sits, it gets a little bit more darker as it cools. So don't keep cooking it to a certain thing because when you do, it will be a little bit darker at the end. Okay. Let's get our second. I have another half batch of strawberries. Now the trick for strawberries when you're just out of season or they're not as sweet as they used to be is you're going to sprinkle just the teeniest bit of sugar on it, because that sugar is going to cause the strawberries to sweat. And when they sweat, they release more of their flavor. And so I find, and you don't need a whole lot of sugar, just like not even a teaspoon. But a sprinkle over it is going to give you a much more flavorful strawberry because it causes them to start like excreting their natural juices. So we'll get these up. And then our bread should be done. I think we're going to hear the beeping here any minute. Go here. I will say we're a big family, and I always try to serve, fresh fruit with, our meals. And we will easily eat 2 pounds of strawberries in one sitting. I think those 2 are bad. Okay. So let me grab my sugar here. And you're just going to take a little pinch, and you're going to sprinkle it around, and then we'll give it a stir. And trust me, this is going to make it so much more flavorful. So it was probably a teaspoon for about 2 pounds of strawberries. So not very much, but this gets away that kind of bitterness to them. So we'll give them a stir up. Here we go. And then we're going to check on our chicken, because I always feel like the second time side cooks much faster than the first side. Okay. Slide this over here. Let's check and see how they are. Just about a little bit longer. We still have kind of a pale color to it, and we want a more golden brown color. But again, I'm going to rotate these. I'm going to twist my pan. And then since there is less than a minute on that, I'm going to move this out of the way. Actually, I say that, and it's beeping right now at me. So I'm going to move this over here. That way, we can get our sourdough out and then our last one out. And we'll see, because I realized it popped on our, here we go. This thing is hilarious. Oh. Okay. So this is my jack-o'-lantern one. He's funny. Okay. When you take your sourdough out of the oven, you want to make sure that you take it out of your Dutch oven fairly quickly so that it doesn't get too cooked on the bottom. I like to do a blonde bake on it. So you see we've got this nice blonde crust. Here, if you can see the jack-o'-lantern face that we cut in there, he's got a really big smile. He's a very happy one. I should have cut circles for the eyes so he could have been Jack Skellington. I think my kids would have thought that was hilarious. And now, let me check our chicken, and then I'm going to take our rest of our dinner out of the oven. Beautiful. We've got a nice kind of golden brown. So again, we're going to put it oil side down. Nice golden brown fry. Okay. And again, always put it oil side down so that it stays nice and crispy. I'm going to drop my last 2 in, and then we're going to grab the nice Parmesan out of the oven. Okay. And here we've got our chicken. Well, not our chicken parm, but we have our chicken there. But here is our creamy Parmesan, like marinara pasta that we'll have for our chicken parm. Okay. Well, guys, we are ready to serve up here. Let me grab this for my plate. I'm just really happy about him. I think he turned out so funny. Okay. So for dinner tonight, I'm going to let's grab my shovel here because you're never complete without, oh, that is hot. Where is I always forget when those things come out of the oven. Okay. Let's grab. So this is our creamy marinara sauce with our cheese. Look at that lovely cheese pull melted on top. So we're going to do a nice big scoop of this on here. Remember, we have mozzarella and Parmesan cheese melted on top here. And just look at all of that delicious cheese pull. We made a creamy marinara sauce, and we're going to serve it with our Parmesan crusted Italian chicken, where we seasoned it with oregano and basil, Parmesan cheese, panko, breadcrumbs, onion powder, garlic salt, and fried it until it was nice and crispy. So just a really delicious but simple meal. We'll serve it up with our slice of our smiling jack-o'-lantern sourdough bread and some fresh strawberries. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to our link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can go to that link, search for what we made, and you can watch and cook along with us again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets. I've got my 6-quart saute pan, my HexClad, my cutting boards, knives, all the different gadgets I use in the kitchen. But again, thank you for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.